Everyone to Just Be with Jenn B and my dear friend Agakura B. We're here today to chat with you. So grab your drink. We're going to get our favorite beverage, our favorite blanket if it's chilly for where you're at, and we're going to chill and chat today. So
Yeah.
Agakura, what do we want to talk about today?
Um, Physical blocks,
Ooh,
something I think that is a topic or something that many HSPs will be familiar with. I don't know if you can confirm that also with for people with ADHD, or would you say that it's more an HSP thing?
I find it more with my high sensitivity, not
You with your high
necessarily my brain engagement because it's so busy doing other things. It's the body, I think, is what we're going to talk about. That's more the HSP.
Yes, and I think also we were talking about especially talking about it in relation to being an HSP entrepreneur, because
Mm,
there's so many things that we are told to do as entrepreneurs. We're told how to do them, and maybe also told with whom to be connecting, how to be connecting, how often, and then having your body as an HSP actually give you that warning
mm,
when it comes to people or environments or events, and maybe also how often we have not listened to it and not
yes.
listened to these physical blocks that which can, in my case, it has also led to physical pain at some point,
Yes.
like in my stomach area. I don't know about
M-
you.
Mine are more headaches and tension
Headaches.
and yes. So
Right.
when we talk about physical blocks, now that we've both started saying what we feel, can you give me can you share with me what you think your definition of physical block is? And we can maybe um our listeners or watchers, would you please also comment what you believe your physical blocks are? So go ahead and if you would define in general what yours tend to be.
So mine would be I'm now thinking that it started really early, already as a child. You know, when you were like, when I grew up in the 80s, you were always supposed to hug Uncle so-and-so, Auntie so-and-so, and this friend and that. And sometimes there were these adults, and not because there was anything like creepy, but you as a child, you like people and you don't like them. It is not,
Right.
and so often um going into those spaces where it didn't feel safe, where maybe somebody, and I mean adults can be mean to children as well, or where you would just like, I don't feel like I like this person. I don't want to sit on their lap. I don't want to hug
I
them. And
want to
then
give them a
feeling
hug.
this this
Yes.
um this feeling in your body, that's a physical block for me, where it's almost like you are really pushing against something,
Yes.
and it feels like violating a natural barrier that your body's actually
Hmm.
giving you, or your mind.
Hmm.
um or I would even go so far as to say your heart and your body. I always say, actually, your body is your guard.
It is.
So when your body tells you something, it's good to listen. But so many times we've grown up not having the opportunity or not being taught to listen to it, but to be like more rational, like, come on, this is what we do. This is what nice, polite children do.
Oh, this is
And
what's
then when
expected of me. This is what I'm supposed to do
exactly,
to be loved and give that hug and that, oh, you're such a good girl. And
yes, you're such
yeah.
exactly hearing you're such a good girl and then carrying that into adulthood. You're such a good girl. I mean, it's still as an adult, I
Mm.
still see myself being in front of other adults and being like, oh, let me be a good girl. Let me be nice
Oh,
to them, even though I feel like they're really not nice people.
right.
But
And so
you
we
have to get
feel
along
that.
with them.
Right.
Exactly.
And so physical blocks, I like how you said they're our guard and they're kind of our intuition. And we definitely are. I felt I was programmed growing up. This is what you're expected. This is, like you said, let's hug this person. Let's like be in this
Mm.
person's space. And wow, if I'm friends with this mom, you need to be friends with their children, even if there's no connection there and there's no niceness there. And then as you get older, I'll take us up into high school. Well, they're the cool crowd. So you have to be kind of around and friends with the cool crowd or make the right friendships. So you just smooth it in or your what's expected is more of what it is, socially
Exactly.
expected. And
Yes.
all the time, like you're saying, our bodies are going, wait, no. So mine shows up in tension in my shoulders. I get headaches. I'm starting to notice definitely more tightness. Like, if you've all been watched one of our previous ones, it was a VAK, like our body embodiment of the feeling. So I feel it more in my stomach and like this clenching of, oh, I have to go be in this place, or I have to go. And for me, it's more of, oh, I have to go perform. It's not being true to who I am. So the
Yes.
blockage is blocking a true self, and I have to perform. And that gets very tiring too.
And it's so interesting that you're saying performing because I was just thinking of my, so I'm also a trained singer. And in that world, you have to get along with many people, even if I mean, because it's like, oh, they're the ones that make sure you get concerts. So they can be behaving like really mean or
Mm.
like not it was always the treatment of you're the singer, you depend on me, and you would love to tell them three or four things, but then no, you have to be friendly to them because if you're not going to get the concert. And I remember that there was once when I was still in training actually. So normally my block shows up in my stomach, and I was training with a teacher who later when we talked amongst us students, so many of us suffered from her meanness. And it got so bad that one night I got up and I couldn't breathe. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to die. Comes results, I had asthma, but for the first time in my life and for the last time in my life. So I went to the doctor and she was like, you've got the lung capacity of a 70-year-old chain smoker. And I was like, that can't be. And she's like, you're not 70. No, you don't smoke. No. And so she gave me the spray, but I couldn't go to class anymore. The moment I unsubscribed from that conservatoire with that teacher, the asthma became less and less. And within a week, it was gone. It was the
Wow.
first and last time that
Wow.
was what my body, because, and then I was like, why did my body do that? Of course, if you can't breathe, you can't sing properly. So my
Right.
body literally, because it was like, if I give you a stomach ache, you will still go to class. If I give
Right.
you a which has also happened, you'll still go. So I need to really protect you, and I'm going to take away what you need to sing, which is your breath.
Now that is a classic example of our body being our protector and
Yeah,
saying, yeah, no, sorry, you're not listening. You're still not listening. So there you go.
exactly. It's like being it like but the body being a good mom, like you're
Ah,
still not listening. So I'm gonna take this away. And it's really like the funny thing is always like I've never had anything with my breathing system, like never ever before and never after.
oh my goodness. Okay, I love that classic example because it is what it happens. For me, it was I was in a job and it was the 9 to 5 and you had to show up and you were measured and oh, and we have to create this and that. And I had one colleague who would like to go into a meeting and then throw like blame for things that didn't happen that they were supposed to do back at me and my other colleagues. And so I started getting headaches when I knew there would be meetings and I knew there would be things that I had to deal with and I had to actually take up space and learn to step in and say, no, that's not right. And it took a long time to figure that out. So again, like you said, my body was saying, I didn't listen because it was expected that I go and I do and I'll just deal with it. And that's
Yeah,
another thing we were taught too, is just deal with it.
just deal with it. And because I think what it's important, because this is now, this conversation is more around being a highly sensitive person,
Mm,
that because we are 15, maximum 20% of the world's population, we will hear just deal with it a lot.
a
So
lot.
now it would be like, what would you tell someone? Because we're usually in the minority.
Oh,
Is
usually.
it important to explain, or is it better to learn to just say, as you always say, no is a full sentence? Is it better to just be, no, I'm not doing this, I'm not going there?
I would have to say it depends on the circumstance. So for something like a meeting or dealing with frustrating colleagues, I would probably say, um, be in tune with yourself, be real with yourself about what your options are, figure out your relationship with whoever is your manager, and then hopefully have an open communication. If that is not possible, it's more of self-care, as that's not mine then. No,
Mm-hmm.
I will not be doing that. That is for you. It's not easy in the world of capitalism because you're expected to produce and you're expected to show up. And so really taking time to take care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage people to do that now. If you're finding
Mm-hmm.
that some of this really resonates, now is the time to go, is that my feelings or is that someone else's feelings? Kind of start grounding yourself, figuring out whose feelings you're feeling, then figure out if it's
Mm-hmm.
yours. Does it really need to be yours?
Yeah.
Saying no to others. And would you say, I'm not sure it's possible, but I'm going to ask and see, would you say it's helpful to create a group, a core group to surround you, to support you with this? And I'm saying I'm not sure if it's possible from the corporate standpoint, because that's a very different animal altogether. But as an entrepreneur,
Yeah. I think it's important to have a core group, and it's also important and I think it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, as we are coaches, whether you are a musician, an artist, whether you have a restaurant, to be clear on who do you want to serve? What
oh,
clients do you want? Do you, have you ever, and I don't know, maybe we've mentioned it in another talk, have you ever had a conversation with a potential client, sensing that there would be trouble, like
yes,
there's this complication, and still being like, well, but I mean, and that's where it
there's
gets
that.
really difficult, right? I need the
Yes,
income, and I'm sensing that this will only be trouble. And then you sign them up. I've had that as a German teacher. And every time there is something, it's either they don't show up, or they start criticizing that the
oh,
homework was like this, and being like, I sensed this. And so it's important, maybe
yes,
also the way you show up or you sell yourself, that you think of, who do I want to attract into my circle? Who do I want to serve? For example, as a
yes,
singer, do I want the people who are like, not compare, or who are like, just enjoy the beauty of music,
right,
maybe more less conventional,
yes,
um less formal. Like, that's my way as a singer.
I
Like,
agree.
I I'm a classical singer, but I like it less formal. I like people who just want to have a good time, maybe have a tea while they're listening, and not the formal, like, well, I went to the opera in Milan and this singer did it that way and you did, like,
Oh my
just
gosh, yes,
knowing how you show up, so that the
yes.
people, and then there will be people who are like, no, she's not for me. But even though as an entrepreneur it may mean money, but in the end it also means mental
Right,
peace.
energy. Because so
Yes.
it's the monetary money, but then it's also the currency of your time, your
Oh,
energy,
yes.
your whole being. And sometimes that's a whole that no, not sometimes. I have to correct myself. It is most of the time. That is the most important currency is self. So
Guys, please note that. I'm sorry, I'm going to, what you just said is so true. What a golden nugget. The currency of your time and the currency of your energy. Like, we
yeah,
don't see these as currencies, and it's so true. The currency
very
of your
true.
energy, like thinking of your energy as currency and not just as, oh, well, I'll just sleep 2 nights and then
Mhm.
it'll be fine. Mm-mm.
Right. And so when you put it, and so when I look at it that way, I'm thinking, well, that person's going to take $10 of my minute, and my minute's worth $1,000.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem to equal or whatever the math is right now, but I will weigh their energy to my currency and go, is it worth it? So my need of that monetary might go,
Yeah.
yeah, never mind. That's not. So that's actually important too, is to kind of really, if you're able to, in whatever circumstance, kind of weigh, is this
Mhm.
the energy from someone else that you want to have in your circle? Because
Yes.
once your stuff is gone and used
Mhm.
for that moment, it's gone.
Yes.
That's very
Yeah.
important. So, oof.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about, well, we talked about jobs, friendships. So we also talked about that a little bit as we were talking about younger, going to older. Friendships then, friendships now with this block. Do you have anything you can think of about friendships
Mm.
through the years?
So if I think back to my teenage years and also, well, from childhood, but also teenage and the young adult, up until my 30s, it was always like, oh, they want to be my friend. So of course, I will let them be my friend.
Yes.
And it brought a lot of tears as well, because there
Yeah.
were just people who were mean, who
Yeah.
were abusive in their way of how they treated the friendship, who did not um value or honor my time or my needs, who where it always ended up being them saying what we would be doing. And I must say that one of the things that this coaching journey, so the interesting thing, I think we've also talked about it in private, you get on this journey and you're like, I want to be a coach, I want to help people. But in the program that we've been blessed to go through, it's like, oh my God, I also get to work on my stuff. And it has brought so
Wow.
much healing. Like now when I scroll through my WhatsApp, they're no longer these people where I'm like, "Oh," there may be one or two, but they're getting low and low. Like I have to
Yeah.
scroll more and more and more to find those chats.
They don't take up as much moments as they might have before. And you're
Have you ever
noticing it.
had, pardon?
And you're noticing that. Like that's big. Because now we're at
Exactly.
the point where like, oh, you have that energy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And are you familiar with maybe your mobile blinking with someone's name and number and well,
Oh
and
my
you said it
gosh.
looks like it's the head and the neck
It's
going
the
like,
whole like a deer in a headlight. Do I answer
like
it? Can they see
I
me?
need, I gotta have a walk and then I'll open that message.
Oh no, yes, I'm learning to just, so I have a little button on the side of my phone where I just click it and it turns everything off. Like it just black out. It just turns the phone to where I don't see messages or anything. It was nope, don't want to see it. I'll go to it when I have the energy for it. I've really learned through the years that when that name comes up or when I see a bling and it's someone else's text, I have to go in with either I'll go in much later when I have the right energy or um or I'll just rip the Band-Aid off and do it quickly and then just be done with it and process it if I'm in a
Oh
really
yeah.
good space. So that's really what I've had to learn is, and I've also learned, you talked about friendships and they always choose what to do, or all of a sudden they've decided maybe I am just too much for them, or I'm not doing things their way. So they'll
Mhm.
ghost you or they'll do whatever it is they do. And it used to be I felt hurt and I could feel like you feel everybody else's things. And I'll say, well, what's wrong? And they'll say nothing, but you can feel it. You can see it, you can all the visual, and as an HSP, you feel it. I'm like, okay, so why are they lying? And I always used to internalize that and think it was me. And I am learning through this long process that I can figure out what's mine, but a lot of it
Mhm.
is theirs. And if it's
Mhm.
theirs, then that's not for me.
Mhm.
And I can just release it and move on. So I have learned to figure out what my responsibility is and okay, maybe I did this or that, but I
Mhm.
don't need to take on everything they feel
Yeah.
if they're not communicating.
Yeah. I mean, I've been guilty of when I would go because I would be so exhausted, go into this low, into the valley of not responding. So I've
Mm,
been guilty of that too, where
mm,
it's like, okay, I have ghosted people too because I wasn't able to
right,
communicate.
right.
And it still is not something that comes easy to me. Like
Me either.
the no does not come easy to me. Um, and so what comes easy to me is being like, okay, just surround myself with people where they will also be like, are you okay with this? Or do you want this?
Oh, people who are more aware and can notice. I agree. Yes. More, more of a give and take, more of a
Yeah.
what did we call that kind of a friend? The whole You said it at one of our very beginning conversations, and I loved it. Your inner core that lets your seed grow. Like you
Yeah,
have a seed of whatever it is, and this core is what waters it and brings it the growth.
exactly.
So
So while, like while you're watering their garden, they're watering yours, while
yes,
you putting food on their plate, they putting food on your plate, and it's all
yes,
like this. And then, yes, you still have, I mean, because we're humans, we will step on one another's toes.
right,
I will step on your toes. I mean, we're working together. You
right.
will.
But what's beautiful is we can notice it. I think more because we're in the work and we start to notice more things, and we can say, "Oh, we have an open communication," and that's maybe what children should be taught instead of go be friends with this person, go give so and so a hug. It's more of, well, how do you feel? Like, I'm not saying to talk to everyone like they're an adult, especially the little ones, but that helps. They learn to talk and voice their emotions and what they're thinking and feeling, and to honor that, not to force
Mm.
expectations. And I think with friendship, same thing.
Same thing, yes. Same thing. Yeah.
So,
Mm.
oh my goodness, all
Oh
the
my
shoulds
God.
and needs. And so, what was I going to ask you? Is it I'm trying to figure out a nice way to ask this question is, what is your feeling on, is it worth exploring friendships to see if they're going to water their garden or if they're just not a gardener in a sense? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think yes. And as HSPs, I think we can actually feel that really quick.
Yes.
It's the way someone may walk into a room and just open the window or ask, is it okay if I open the window? It's
Mm,
those little things,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes. Is it
I
about
think
them or is it
exactly.
about the,
Yes.
the companionship? Mm,
Yes. And it's difficult sometimes when you hear people are so enthusiastic about one person and you're like, but I don't really
yes.
feel that and still trust and also be okay with maybe not always having um like maybe sometimes along the way you will be like, oh yeah, they are actually nice and it was just a wall they were putting up so that I mean
Right.
just knowing that we all have our protective walls. It can happen, it does happen to me that people were like, oh my God, I didn't know you're so funny or you're so nice because you were so serious. And that
Mm,
was like me with my protective wall and with
yes.
my, I'm observing and I've come across in a certain way that I am not.
Mm,
And being like, okay, maybe seeing people in different settings, there are people who change
yes.
according to settings and being like, well, and knowing that we do, or I do that too.
I do too. I've had people say, you're so intimidating. And I went, well, I was until they got to know me. And then they're like, but you're really so fun and goofy. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's who I am. But I do believe, like you said, my introverted and HSP self, I go in with my armor up because I don't know what I'm going to feel. I don't know what's going to come at me. And I'm very hesitant and I need to be the observer until I feel,
Yes.
but with an HSP, when they consider you a friend in their core is when they start sharing and they're being their true self
Yes, that's
be-
true.
because it comes real.
Yeah, that's true. And it's so interesting. I was once part of a dance class, and there was this lady where I was always, oh my God, she's, wow, she just has this, like, not just self-secure, but don't come close to me. And there was once we had this performance, and then we got talking after that. And then I was telling her something, we were talking, and then she started crying. She's like, oh, I'm loving this conversation so much. And I'm like, wow.
Do you realize your energy pushes people there?
Yeah, and then we just started like after dance class hanging out, and she became like the person I was closest to. And
Oh,
I told her, like um this was my perception. She's like, yeah, I know I have that and I know I do that. But I really need to warm up to people and sometimes in that setting it just feels like I'm protecting myself.
I
And the
agree.
interesting thing is that she was it was in Germany and she was European but with an immigrant background. And then we started talking that
Oh,
we had this similarity of having had certain experiences as children while growing up in another society that made us interact in
wow.
a certain way. And she was, I think she was about 15 years older, so she even grew up in a Germany that was still like
Uh-huh.
even more close to immigrants, So
Yes.
it was so interesting, and that's why I'm saying it's good sometimes to be like, okay, let's give it a chance, let's give it a chance, and to also notice when you're like, okay, I don't think,
Okay.
just play with it.
Right. Oh, I
Maybe
love
be
that. Just play with
playful.
it. Oh, yeah. Just notice play. And I mean, and I'm putting the word flexible in there because you never know. But I think I'm also hearing permission to when it doesn't click, it doesn't click.
It doesn't
And it's
click,
okay.
and it's okay. Yes, yes,
That's good. I needed to
definitely.
hear permission because there's times I'm like, oh, I have permission not to be friends. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all we have to hear.
Hmm. And where do you think that comes from? The needing permission not to be
Oh,
friends. Is that something that's goes way back?
oh, I'm sure when you're when I was little, it's um and my background is now is I'm a teacher, so I'm not a full-time anymore, I'm part-time, but I've noticed how over the years children say, well, you need to share, you need to apologize, you need to do this. Like you're taught what's
Mm.
expected, and getting permission to not be friends is something that's given. It's like, well, you need to include everyone. And while I understand the philosophy behind it, I also understand now the programming that's with it. And it might be unintentional. But it does come with the, oh, I have permission to be me and make my own choices of who's my friend.
Mhm.
So yes,
That's good.
that's what I'm
That's
noticing.
good.
So, oh
Yeah.
my goodness. If you were to leave everyone with one thought about this physical blocks, the connecting with our intuition and our what did you call it? Our individual um shield. What would you leave them with?
Um, I think first of all to really become aware and appreciate that your body is really your guard and wants to be your guard. And to maybe make it a habit to, if it's something that's new to you, to start playing around by thinking of
Mhm.
certain places, activities, people, and listening into your body and really seeing that there is a connection to how you feel. And maybe you even start noticing where you feel it, because sometimes it's like, oh, I have this sometimes where it's like, oh, I didn't notice how tense my shoulders were
Mm,
until this event stopped, or so really
yes.
start playing by thinking of certain things, activities, places, people, and see how your body reacts to that.
Mm. And as you notice it, maybe you'll notice a pattern and then you can start adjusting, adjusting with what works for you. And I would actually leave with all of that combined, um, just to remember you are important as a person, yourself. I'm going back to the word currency of your time, your energy, your belief in who you are is so important. And so as you're noticing, start to decide where your value is
Mm.
shared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you
Well,
so much.
thank you. Oh my
Beautiful.
goodness. It's always good to spend time with you. And so we're going to wrap up Just Be for now, but come back for others. Like, subscribe, make your comments. We'll check them out. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Just Be.
Yes. See you next time.